Hey, it's time for another episode of Stevie Rocks. Hey, kids, rock and roll, rock on. Yeah. Well, kids, let's see. What do we got today? I've decided to go over my, about a year ago, I did, people were doing this thing challenge on Facebook, 10 albums. And I did 10 albums. Then I thought, I can't do 10. I got to do 20. I was like, you know what? I can't do 20. I got to do 50. And I said, screw it. I'm doing 100. And I did 100 albums. All right. And what I did, I challenged myself. It was only one artist per album, or one album per artist. I guess I said that wrong. So that was a real challenge. I couldn't repeat myself. Otherwise, I'd have, obviously, if you know me by now, I'd have 10 Kinks albums on there. So I only picked one. And it doesn't necessarily mean it was their best album, but it was the albums that meant something to me personally. And I went through that list because people are doing it again. And I went through that list this year and I looked back at it. I'm like, you know what? I forgot a lot of them. So you know what I did? I'm doing a second 100 albums and the same theory, only one album per artist. Now I could repeat the artists I did on the first list, so it gives me a chance to put new stuff on there. But I'm also mixing it up, doing something that I refused to do the first time. The first time I refused to include compilations or greatest hits albums, and I refused to use live albums. This time I'm doing away with that rule. I've got some greatest hits on the list. I've got some live albums on the list, and I've got some very surprising selections that some of my friends and people who know me are going to go, really? But you're going to find out how eclectic, that's a great word, my musical tastes are. So I started out with day one was a compilation album, Kinks Chronicles. I'm not going to talk about the Kinks again because I've ad nauseum to everybody about, you all know now, by now, how I feel about the Kinks. So I'm going to pass over that one. Day two, which was yesterday, I chose an album that changed my life. What happened was in high school, when I really started getting into music, all my friends, in high school, you like the same music all your friends like. So I got into Southern rock, Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, not really Southern rock, but, they were big back. Neil Young was huge back. Everybody was listening to Neil Young. And then it was prog rock. It was Yes and ELP and Genesis. And I love that stuff. I still do to this day. But what happened was like in the mid 70s, prog rock got stupid. It got really silly really fast. And they were already over the top and they went over the top. So it got like really silly. So I stopped listening to a lot of prog rock. Plus bands broke up. Genesis wasn't the same without Peter Gabriel. And the other problem with prog rock bands is they were so popular, it was very difficult to get to see them in concert because tickets would sell out immediately. And I never got to see a lot of my favorite prog rock bands like Genesis with Peter Gabriel. I sing Peter Gabriel, but anyway, that's not the issue here. The album that changed my life, what happened was prog rock became like very saturated. So I started listening to jazz. I listened to Return to Forever and Mahavishnu Orchestra and Herbie Hancock. Good stuff, but Jean-Luc Ponty, modern jazz, let's call it. Not like jazz, but like modern rock jazz, I guess you'd call it, prog jazz. It was a whole separate category, and it was very popular in the 75, 76 era. And it wasn't until I entered Record Stop, which I used to go to a lot every Thursday. And I went into Record Stop, and there was Nippo, James Antonucci, known as Nippo. Apparently, he got the nickname because he came out of the water one day, and it was cold out, and his nipples were sticking out, so they called him Nippo. It's adorable. And he said, you got to hear this. They sound like robots. Every song sounds exactly the same, and it's brilliant. The name of the band is Ramones, and they're not related. I was like, what? And he put it on. Blitzkrieg Bop came on. And I said, what the hell is this garbage? By the second song, Beat on the Brat, I was hooked. I said, this is hilarious. This is everything that's great about rock and roll. So my number two record of the week, of the year, of the 100 part two, of the 200, I guess I should call it the 200, was the Ramones debut album, which debuted April 1976. Now, this was really the beginning. It really wasn't the beginning. You can go back and say the Stooges and the MC5 and all those bands started the punk era, but this was really the beginning of the New York punk rock wave that hit so hard and so fast in April of 1976 with that Ramones first album. For me, that was the beginning of it. Opened up my horizons to music I never thought I would ever listen to. I started getting into the Stooges and MC5 and all those garage rock bands that I never listened to before. And somebody said that they were the New York Beach Boys, the Ramones. So I started listening to the Beach Boys, and that was another band I never really got into. And it opened up a door to them, and then it opened up the door to British rock and new wave, and it just expanded my mind. An album with three chords expanded my mind more than prog rock with multiple layers of instrumentation of, wow, these guys could really play their instruments. The Ramones could barely play their instruments, but it didn't matter. It was rock and roll the way it was meant to be played, and I freaking loved it. So I started rocking April 1976 with the release of that first album by the Ramones. Uh, or Ramones. It's not the Ramones, it's just Ramones. Unfortunately, they're all gone now. Joey died, then Dee Dee, then Johnny, then Tommy. I might have them in the wrong order, but they're all gone. The original four Ramones are gone. They switched drummers a lot. They were like the Spinal Tap of punk rock. And I think Dee Dee left after a while. But Johnny and Joey remained in the band all the way till the end, and they hated each other, which is how you got to be. You can't be rock and roll unless you hate each other, right? All right, Stevie Rocks. Now today, day 3, I chose another album that changed my life, and this was Alice Cooper Killer. I had this on 8-track on that box of 8-tracks that I spoke about in episode 1. And I didn't know. I was like, Alice Cooper, who's she? What did I know? I was 14. Plugged it in, and from the first chord, the telephone is ringing. You got me on the run. Under My Wheels, man. Halo of Flies, Dead Babies, Desperado, Killer. Incredible album. Just it was like a horror movie. It was like a horror movie of rock. Alice Cooper. And by the time the next album came out, School's Out, I was already a Cooper fanatic. And in Billion Dollar Babies, it was like boom, boom, boom. And I went back and got Love It to Death. Love It to Death, Killer, School's Out, Billion Dollar Babies. Probably a foursome of the best rock records in the history of music. 4 in a row, just brilliant, brilliant albums. And it was the legacy of Alice Cooper, really, right there. Those 4, that chunk, nobody could beat it. That was the Alice Cooper Band. Dennis Dunaway, Glenn Buxton, Mike. Oh, crap. Neil Smith was the drummer. Can't remember the guitar player. Glenn Buxton was bass. Neil Smith, Dennis Dunaway, Michael. I'll have to get back to you on that. Alice Cooper Killer is number 3. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Number 4 is coming up. Some of them are going to be obvious, but some of them are going to be like, what? 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 You'll see. You'll have to watch and see. Stevie Rocks, thanks for following me. Certainly you could share all my rock and roll memories. This is not about educating you about rock music. It's about how the music makes me feel. Thanks.